A late-night hotel stay with my son took a dark turn. Infidelity story. The dim glow of the hotel hallway lights flickered as I fumbled for the key card. My son clutched my hand, his small fingers tense against my palm. Something felt off. The air inside the room was heavy, carrying a scent I could not place. As I stepped inside, the dim light from the bedside lamp revealed an unsettling sight. My husband's suitcase, unzipped, his clothes scattered across the chair, but he was supposed to be on a business trip miles away. I turned toward the bed, my heart pounding, and that was when I saw her. This was not just a mistake, it was a betrayal. Life had been predictable, structured even. My husband Daniel was a man of routine, his days filled with work trips and late-night meetings. I had convinced myself that this was the price of success, that the distance between us was temporary. Our son, Liam, was too young to notice the cracks forming in our marriage, but I felt them every night when I lay in bed alone. That evening, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. Liam and I had spent the day traveling, an unplanned stop at this hotel due to a delayed flight. It was meant to be a quick overnight stay, one last adventure before heading home. Daniel had been away for a week, supposedly in another city for a conference. I had spoken to him earlier that day, his voice rushed but familiar. "I will call you later," he had said. He never did. Liam was half asleep as we checked into the hotel. The lobby buzzed with tired travelers, suitcases dragging across the marble floors. I barely registered the clerk's polite smile as he handed me the key card. All I wanted was a few hours of sleep before our early morning flight. The elevator ride to our room was quiet, except for the faint hum of soft jazz playing through the speakers. Liam leaned against me, his small body warm and trusting. He was my world, the one constant in a life that had begun to feel uncertain. As we reached our floor, a strange sense of unease prickled at my skin. The hallway was eerily silent, the kind of silence that felt intentional. Brushing off the feeling, I slid the keycard into the door and stepped inside. That was when I saw it, Daniel's suitcase sitting in the corner of the room. My breath hitched. My mind scrambled for a reasonable explanation, but nothing made sense. He was supposed to be states away. His suitcase was open, his neatly folded shirts now crumpled. His shoes, familiar and worn, rested by the bed. I turned slowly, dread clawing up my spine. The air smelled faintly of perfume, not mine. Then from the bed, a soft rustling sound. A shape shifted beneath the covers. My stomach dropped. I was not alone in this room. For a long moment, I could not move. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the tangled sheets, my mind refusing to process what I already knew deep down. Liam tugged at my hand. "Mommy?" His voice was groggy, confused. I had to move. I had to think. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I took a slow step forward. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, each beat drowning out rational thought. My hand tightened around Liam's as I leaned down, whispering, "Stay here." I reached for the lamp switch, hesitating just for a second before flicking it on. The dull yellow glow flooded the room, illuminating everything. The suitcase, the shoes, the discarded tie draped over the chair, and the figures in the bed. Daniel was there. He was not alone. A woman, young, barely older than a college student, lay beside him, her dark hair spilling over the pillow. The moment the light hit them, she stirred, groaning softly before blinking up at me in bleary confusion. Then realization struck her. Her eyes widened in panic, and she jerked upright, the sheets slipping down to reveal bare skin. Daniel's reaction was slower. He shifted, blinking at the light, groaning at the sudden disturbance. Then, as his vision cleared and he saw me standing there, his face drained of color. "Jenna," he started, scrambling to sit up, his voice hoarse with sleep and guilt. I could not breathe. I could not speak. Liam whimpered beside me. I had forgotten he was there. I bent down and scooped him into my arms, shielding him from the sight of his father tangled in bed with another woman. Daniel swung his legs off the bed, his movements frantic. "Jenna, I can explain." Explain? Explain? The word clawed at my brain like a cruel joke. There was no explaining this. The evidence was right in front of me. The disheveled sheets, the scent of another woman's perfume in the air, the guilt smeared across his face like an open wound. I stepped back, every muscle in my body screaming at me to get out. Liam's arms wrapped tightly around my neck. "Mommy, I want to go home," he whispered, his voice trembling. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his face twisted in something resembling regret. But regret was useless now. The woman beside him clutched the sheets to her chest, her face pale. I did not know he was married," she stammered. I almost laughed, almost. Daniel turned to her sharply. Just stay out of this," he snapped, as if shutting her up would somehow undo what I had just witnessed. I forced myself to stay calm, if only for Liam's sake. "I do not care who she is," I said quietly, my voice disturbingly steady. "I care that you are here, in this room, when you were supposed to be somewhere else." Daniel took a step toward me. I stepped back, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Jenna, listen to me." "No." The word cut through the air like a blade. "You do not get to talk your way out of this." I turned toward the door, adjusting Liam's weight in my arms. My son, my innocent little boy, was not supposed to be exposed to this kind of betrayal. Daniel's voice cracked. "Please, do not leave like this." I did not stop. I did not look back. With shaking hands, I yanked open the door and stepped into the dimly lit hallway. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound ringing in my ears like the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. But this was not over, not yet. I made it down to the lobby before my knees threatened to give out. The receptionist glanced up, startled by the sight of a woman carrying a half-asleep child, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" Nothing was all right. I took a steadying breath. "I need another room," I said, forcing the words out. "Now." She blinked, clearly about to ask more questions, but something in my face must have stopped her. She nodded quickly, typing into the computer. "Of course, we have a room available on a different floor." "Perfect." As she handed me the new key card, Liam stirred in my arms. "Mommy, where is Daddy?" I closed my eyes for half a second, the weight of his question pressing against my already shattered heart. "He is staying in another room tonight," I said softly, brushing his hair from his forehead. Liam frowned sleepily but did not ask anything else. I pressed a kiss to his temple before carrying him toward the elevator. I did not cry, not yet, but the storm inside me was only growing. Inside our new room, I laid Liam down on the bed, tucking the blanket around him. His tiny fingers clutched at my sleeve. "Are you mad at Daddy?" he murmured. My chest tightened. I knelt beside him, running my fingers gently through his hair. "I am just sad," I admitted. Liam's brow furrowed. "Will he come say goodnight?" I hesitated. "Not tonight, sweetheart." His eyes drooped with sleep, and within moments his breathing evened out. I watched him, my heart aching. Then I stood and walked toward the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The city lights blurred in my vision. What was I supposed to do now? Confront him? Pack my bags and leave? Pretend this never happened? A sharp knock at the door made me jump. I knew who it was before I even turned. Daniel. For a long moment I did not move. Then with a deep breath, I walked to the door and opened it just enough to see him standing there, his face lined with exhaustion and guilt. "Jenna, please." I held up a hand. "Keep your voice down. Liam is asleep." He exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. "Can we talk?" I stared at him, searching for something. Remorse, explanation, anything that would make this moment easier. But there was nothing. Nothing but betrayal. "Not now," I said, my voice firm. "Not here." His jaw tightened. "Jenna, I made a mistake." I let out a slow, bitter breath. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. This is not a mistake. This is a choice." His eyes darkened, but he did not argue. For the first time in years, I felt an unfamiliar emotion rising inside me. Power. I straightened my spine, my voice quiet but unwavering. "You need to leave." Daniel hesitated. "Can we?" "No." He swallowed hard, glancing toward the bed where Liam slept peacefully, oblivious to the storm raging outside his dreams. His shoulders slumped. He knew he had no right to push any further. "Good night, Jenna," he murmured before turning and walking away. I closed the door and locked it. Then finally, I let the first tear fall. The silence in the hotel room was suffocating. The dim glow of the bedside lamp barely pushed back the darkness, but it was enough for me to see Liam's peaceful face as he slept. His small chest rose and fell with each steady breath, unaware of the storm raging inside me. I had told Daniel to leave, but I knew this was not the end. It could not be. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling in my lap. My mind replayed everything in excruciating detail. The sight of my husband tangled in sheets that were not ours, the perfume that did not belong to me, the way his face had crumpled when he realized he had been caught. For years, I had made excuses for him. Every missed phone call, every late night at work, every time he seemed just a little too distant. I had told myself that marriage was hard, that love required patience. But love did not require this. A deep, quiet rage simmered beneath my skin, not loud or explosive, but cold and cutting. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect wife, the understanding wife, the forgiving wife. Where had that gotten me? I exhaled shakily and ran a hand through my hair. I needed air. Carefully, I slid off the bed and tucked the blanket around Liam's small body. He stirred, but did not wake. I grabbed the hotel key card and slipped outside, closing the door softly behind. The hallway was empty. The soft hum of a vending machine in the distance was the only sound. I leaned against the wall, pressing my fingertips to my temples. What now? Leaving Daniel was an option, a real, viable option. But was I ready for that? The weight of the years we had spent together pressed against me. He had been my best friend once, the man who held my hand through every doctor's visit when I was pregnant with Liam, who whispered inside jokes to me at fancy dinner parties to make me laugh. When had he stopped loving me? Had I been fooling myself this whole time? The elevator dinged down the hall, snapping me out of my thoughts. I straightened, my pulse spiking when I saw him step out. Daniel. His eyes found mine immediately, like he had been looking for me. His tie was gone, the first few buttons of his shirt undone. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, but there was something else there. Determination. I did not move as he walked toward me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then quietly he said, "Can we talk?" I crossed my arms. I thought I made myself clear. His jaw tightened. "You did, but I am asking anyway." I should have walked away. I should have slammed the door in his face. Instead, I exhaled sharply and nodded toward the stairwell at the end of the hall. 5 minutes. Daniel followed me without a word. The stairwell was cold, the air thick with unspoken words. I turned to face him, arms still crossed. "Say what you need to say." He ran a hand over his face, exhaling heavily. "Jenna, I messed up." A bitter laugh escaped me. I figured that part out on my own. He winced but did not look away. "I did not plan for this to happen." "That makes it worse, Daniel." My voice was quiet but sharp. "You did not just make a mistake. You made choices, repeatedly." He shook his head. "It was not like that. He stopped himself, closing his eyes for a moment before opening them again. "I was lonely." Something inside me snapped. "You were lonely?" He nodded, his gaze pleading. "You and we have not been us for a long time, Jenna. We barely talk, He swallowed. It was not about her. It was about feeling something again. I took a slow step toward him, my voice dangerously calm. "So while I was home, raising our son, holding our family together, trying to fix things, you were out looking for something new?" He flinched. "It is not that simple." "Yes, Daniel." My chest rose and fell heavily. "It is." Silence stretched between us. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "I did not want to hurt you." Another hollow laugh. "Well, congratulations, you failed." His face twisted in pain, but I did not feel bad for him. Not anymore. "You should have just told me." I said after a moment. My voice was quieter now, more tired than angry. If you were unhappy, if you wanted something else, you should have told me instead of this. He looked down ashamed. I know. I studied him for a long moment, searching for something: remorse, honesty, regret. I saw all of it, but I also saw something else: weakness. Not the kind that made someone pathetic, but the kind that made someone cowardly. Daniel had always been afraid of hard conversations. It was easier for him to bury problems than face them head on, and I was done waiting for him to be brave. I took a deep breath, my decision solidifying in my mind. I am done, Daniel. His head snapped up. Jenna. No. I shook my head. This is not something we come back from. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. What about Liam? My heart clenched. You will always be his father, but we are over. I expected him to fight, to argue, but he just stood there, silent. Finally, he exhaled, looking away. I never wanted this. Neither did I. We stood there, two people who had once loved each other, now standing on opposite sides of a broken marriage. I turned to leave. Jenna. I stopped but did not turn. His voice was hoarse when he said, I am sorry. I closed my eyes for half a second, letting the words settle over me. Then I walked away. And this time, I did not look back. The sound of our footsteps echoed through the bustling airport, each step pushing me further away from the life I had known. Liam's small hand clutched mine, warm and trusting, oblivious to the storm still raging inside me. As we passed through security, I glanced back only once. Daniel stood where we had left him, his posture heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid. But this time, there were no second thoughts, no hesitation. I turned away, focusing on the present, on Liam, on us. The flight home was long and quiet. Liam dozed off with his head resting against my arm, his tiny fingers still wrapped around mine, even in sleep. I stared out the window, my thoughts drifting like the clouds beneath us. Everything had changed. I had spent years building a life with Daniel, convincing myself that our love could withstand distance, routine, even neglect. I had excused his absences, silenced my doubts, told myself that marriage meant sacrifice. But sacrifice should never have meant losing myself. A flight attendant walked by, offering me a warm smile. I forced one in return. She had no idea that my entire world had just shattered, that I was sitting in this seat with my son beside me, holding the pieces of a broken marriage in my hands. The irony was, I did not feel broken. I felt something else, liberated. The taxi ride home was surreal. The streets were familiar, but I felt like a stranger in my own life. As we pulled into our driveway, Liam stirred, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Are we home? He murmured. I smoothed his hair back. Yes, sweetheart, we are home. Home, but what did that mean now? Daniel's absence was glaring the moment I stepped inside. The house felt bigger, emptier. The scent of his cologne no longer lingered in the air. The silence was louder than I expected. Liam yawned, kicking off his shoes before stumbling toward the couch. He looked around, his expression thoughtful. Where is Daddy's stuff? My heart clenched. He is staying somewhere else for now. Liam frowned. Is he coming back? I hesitated. How do you tell a child that the life he knew is gone, that the family he thought was forever had already cracked beneath his feet? Kneeling beside him, I cupped his small face. Daddy and we need to live in different places for a while. Liam blinked up at me. Like when you go to the store and come back. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. No, sweetheart, like when you stay at Grandma's for the weekend, but longer. His little brows furrowed. Why? Because Daddy broke something that cannot be fixed. Because love is not supposed to feel like waiting. Because I deserve more. I forced a steady breath. Because sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. Liam was quiet for a moment before finally nodding. He did not fully understand, but he accepted my answer. Okay. He climbed onto the couch, curling into a ball. Within minutes, he was asleep again. I sat beside him, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. This was not how I imagined our life, but maybe, just maybe, it could still be good. The first night alone was the hardest. I had never realized how much of my life had revolved around Daniel until he was no longer there. The empty side of the bed felt unnatural. The silence of the house stretched endlessly. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the last 24 hours in vivid detail. I had walked away. I had really walked away, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had made the right choice. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Liam's footsteps padding down the hall. He climbed into bed beside me, curling against my side. "Can we have pancakes?" he asked sleepily. A small, tired smile touched my lips. "Of course." We made breakfast together, just the two of us. Liam giggled as he poured too much syrup on his plate, his laughter filling the kitchen. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed too. Days passed, and reality settled in. Daniel called, of course. At first, he left long, remorseful voicemails, his voice thick with regret. "Jenna, please call me back. We need to talk." Then the messages became shorter. "I do not want to lose you." Eventually, they stopped coming. I did not answer any of them. I was not ready. Maybe I never would be. One afternoon, I sat in the living room, sipping a cup of tea while Liam played with his toy cars. The doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I even stood up. My heart pounded as I opened the door. Daniel stood there looking different, tired, defeated. I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Daniel?" He swallowed hard. I wanted to see Liam." I hesitated, then nodded. "He is inside." Daniel stepped past me cautiously, his eyes scanning the house. It looked the same, but everything was different now. Liam looked up and beamed. "Daddy!" Daniel smiled, kneeling down to hug him. "Hey, buddy." I stood back, watching them. Once the sight of Daniel with our son had filled me with warmth. Now it felt like watching a stranger hold the most precious thing in my life. Daniel looked up at me. "Can we talk?" I took a deep breath. "Not today." His face fell, but he nodded. "Okay." For the next hour, he sat with Liam, playing, laughing, pretending that everything was normal. But when it was time to leave, reality caught up to us again. Daniel stood by the door, hesitation in his posture. "Jenna." I met his gaze, waiting, his throat bobbed. "I know I hurt you." I nodded, silent. I want you to know that I never meant to." I let out a slow breath. "Intentions do not change the damage, Daniel." His shoulders sagged. I know. For the first time, he did not try to argue. Did not try to fix it. And that was how I knew. He finally understood that this was over. He bent down, kissing Liam's forehead. "I will see you soon, buddy." Liam yawned, nodding. "Okay, Daddy." Daniel hesitated one last time, then turned and walked away. I closed the door behind him, and I felt nothing. That night, I tucked Liam into bed and sat beside him until he fell asleep. Then I stood by the window, staring out at the dark sky, breathing in the cool night air. For the first time in a long time, I was not waiting for Daniel to come home. I was home. And that was enough. The days stretched into weeks. The raw sting of betrayal dulled into something quieter, something I could manage. The initial shock had passed, and in its place was a strange, unsettling calm. There were still moments when I caught myself reaching for my phone to text Daniel about something trivial. Liam's school project, a funny thing he said at dinner, before I remembered. Remembered that those small, everyday things were no longer ours to share. Remembered that the man I had spent years building a life with had broken something that could never be repaired. There was no guidebook for this part of my life, no instructions on how to grieve a marriage that was still technically intact on paper, but long gone in every way that mattered. And yet, here I was, still standing, still breathing, and somehow still moving forward. One evening, after Liam had fallen asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the blank space where Daniel's keys used to sit. It was strange how absence could feel so loud. The house was quieter now. There were no late-night calls from Daniel, no hurried footsteps in the hallway as he rushed to pack for another business trip, no fake smiles, no forced conversations, just silence. I should have felt empty. I should have felt lost. But I did not. Instead, there was a quiet strength growing inside me, a realization that had taken root and refused to let go. I had spent so long fighting to hold on to something that was already gone, fighting to keep a love that had already left, fighting to fix a man who had never asked to be fixed. But love is not supposed to be a battle. Love is not supposed to be something you have to convince someone to give. And maybe, just maybe, love is not supposed to be about staying. Maybe sometimes love is knowing when to walk away. I was still adjusting to this new version of life. Liam asked about his father often. I never lied to him. I never told him things would be okay between us, because I did not know if they ever would be. Daniel saw him on weekends now. Their time together was filled with outings, fun distractions, and laughter, the kind of attention he had not always given Liam before. It was ironic, really. Daniel had failed me as a husband, but when the walls of our marriage collapsed, he had stepped up as a father. That was the only silver lining in this mess. That, and the fact that I no longer had to wait for someone who was never fully present in the first place. One evening, Daniel showed up unexpectedly at the door. It had been a month since the night in the hotel room. We had kept our conversations brief, civil, always about Liam. I had not seen him outside of those exchanges, and I had not wanted to. Yet there he was, standing on my porch, looking unsure for the first time in his life. I hesitated before opening the door. He let out a shaky breath. "Hey." I crossed my arms. "What are you doing here, Daniel?" He looked past me, as if expecting to see some trace of the life he had left behind. "Can we talk?" he asked. I clenched my jaw. There is nothing left to say. He exhaled. "I know I am the last person you want to see right now." I let out a hollow laugh. "You would be right about that." His eyes darkened, but he did not argue. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair. "I need you to know that I regret what I did." I said nothing. "I keep thinking about that night, the way you looked at me, the way you walked away." His voice was rough, as if the words hurt to admit. And I realized something. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? And what was that?" He swallowed hard. "I lost you long before that night." The air between us grew thick with unspoken words. He shifted his weight. "I was selfish, Jenna. I let myself believe that because we were married, because we had a child, that I would always have you." My throat tightened. "I thought I could get away with it," he continued, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought that as long as you did not find out, it was not real. But it was. It was real the moment I let myself betray you." For a brief moment, I saw the man I had once loved, the man I had trusted, but it was too late. I shook my head slowly. "It does not matter anymore, Daniel." His eyes flickered with something, panic maybe. "Jenna, I am not saying this to hurt you," I interrupted. "I am saying this because it is the truth. We are over, and we are never going back." His jaw tightened. "So that is it? That is it?" His lips parted like he wanted to say something else, but then he just nodded. "Okay." I stepped back. "Goodbye, Daniel." He lingered for a second, but in the end, he did what I had done that night in the hotel. He walked away, and this time, I did not look back. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, letting the finality of it all sink in. I was no longer Daniel's wife. I was no longer the woman waiting for him to change. I was free. I did not know what my future would look like. I did not know if I would ever love again, if I would ever trust someone enough to open my heart the way I had with Daniel. But maybe that was okay. Some wounds take time to heal, some questions do not need answers right away, and some stories are not meant to have an ending just yet. As I turned off the lamp and closed my eyes, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. Tomorrow was a new day, a day without Daniel, a day without regret, a day that was mine, and maybe that was enough, for now. What do you think? Do you believe that some betrayals are unforgivable? Or do you think love deserves a second chance? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, do not forget to like and subscribe.